Okay, we're up and running. Oh, and I see some folks coming in already. Welcome, everybody. I see 3 attendees. Hi, Jenny, Mary, and Rick. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, and we'll just kind of give folks enough time to get signed in here. Hi, Anne. Thanks for coming. I see Michelle. I'm seeing some new participants added. Welcome, Tina. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm seeing some new attendees popping in. Hi, Carla. And who else is new? Anne, hi. Welcome aboard. We are going to get started in just a couple minutes here. Hi, Ed. Welcome aboard. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. It's 1:30 on the dot right now, so I just want to give folks maybe one more minute until we get going so they don't miss anything. I'm seeing more folks popping in. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're just about to get started. Okay. Well, I think it's 1:31, so I think I might as well get started here. I'm going to start my video. All right, hello and welcome to the WisCaregiver Careers Implementation Webinar. My name is Kate Badiato and I am the WisCaregiver Careers Project Manager for our 2021 relaunch. I'm also the Director of Workforce Development for the Wisconsin Healthcare Association and the Wisconsin Center for Assisted Living. And I am so excited for the opportunity to roll out WisCaregiver Careers statewide with you. This implementation webinar is customized to our WisCaregiver employers in the Northeast, North Central, and South Central regions of the state, because with me today are our FSET program partners for each of those regions. Representing the Northeast and North Central regions of the state are Jennifer Marks and Nate Andrews from the Forward Service Corporation. Hi, Jennifer and Nate, thank you so much for being with us. And representing the North Central region, we have Megan Stanchik and Jessica Locken from Change Within. They will fill us in on what our FSET partnership will mean to you in terms of CNA applicant referrals and job retention support that they will provide to our WisCaregivers. And thank you again all for being here. Please know that our goal is to make this program as easy to use and as beneficial as possible for you and your staffing needs. We very much value your feedback and want to hear from you about how it's going for you and your teams, whether it's good or bad. My program partners and I really value your on-the-ground insights, and we will do everything we can to act on the feedback that you provide. I'll be providing our contact information at the end of today's presentation, so please know that we are only ever a phone call or email away to assist you with any questions, comments, or concerns. So let's move on here to our agenda. Our goal for today is to build or expand upon your understanding of what WisCaregiver Careers is all about and to understand the roles and expectations for your involvement. We'll walk you through a program overview, then provide details on our partnership with FSET. Next, we'll cover everything you need to know to receive your reimbursement for training and certification testing, and we'll end with Q&A. So here's our program overview. WisCaregiver Careers is a workforce development program designed to address the CNA shortage in Wisconsin nursing homes by providing free training, free certification testing, and $500 sign-on or retention bonuses. The program seeks to encourage new workers to enter the field of caregiving by lowering the costs of becoming a CNA and by making training more readily accessible. The program pays for the free training and testing, while the employers pay for the bonuses. So just quickly, I'd like to go over our program goals. These are the minimum program outcomes that must be attained in order to comply with our grant requirements. We would actually love to see all 500 people who start the training complete it and go on to become certified and work in Wisconsin nursing homes. But these are the minimums that we're held to from our Wisconsin Fast Forward grant. And these program goals have an impact on our ability to reimburse for training expenses. Take, for instance, this 425 number. What this means is that we can fund only 75 trainees who fail or withdraw from training across the entire program. This means that we need to limit our reimbursement of withdrawn and failed trainees to a maximum of 15% of the trainees you might happen to invoice. That means that we can only reimburse one failed or withdrawn trainee for every 6 who complete training. This 319 number means that we can reimburse up to 106 trainees who finish training but do not go on to attain their CNA certification. We just want you to keep this in mind as you're going through your invoicing and as well as when you're working with your WisCaregivers as they go through training. So a bit about our administration. WHCA, the Wisconsin Healthcare Association, is taking the lead on program administration and administers the program's finances through a $400,000 Wisconsin Fast Forward grant, which we were awarded last summer by the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. We're also funded through a $77,000 civil money penalties reinvestment program grant, which was awarded last month through CMS as well as the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. I'd like to take this opportunity to draw your attention to some nuances of our funding structure in order to put some of our program features into context. The first is that our Wisconsin Fast Forward grant carries a 50% matching requirement, meaning that for every dollar released from the grant, we must provide 50 cents of outside funding. Our CMP grant covers 40% of the matching funds that we need, and we are looking to our program partners to help us make up the rest. I'll be getting into more detail on this as we go along, but again, I just wanted you to understand why we are designing the program the way we are. So I'd like to share some program updates with you that I hope will make WisCaregiver careers even more valuable to you. Our first program update will provide you much more flexibility in terms of your candidate sourcing methods. WisCaregivers can now be sourced from any method, not exclusively through FSET. This means that your existing employees can participate if they're interested in becoming a CNA, and you can use your existing community sourcing methods, such as your recruitment portal, your relationships with local high schools. Any CNA recruitment method that works for you is acceptable to WisCaregiver careers. Our second program update also provides more flexibility in terms of when the $500 bonuses are paid. Now, in addition to the 6-month retention bonus option, employers have the option of providing a sign-on bonus instead. We've built this added flexibility in large part to help employers meet the matching fund needs that we have for our Fast Forward grant. Which brings me to our most significant program update, which is our employer matching funds contributions. We understand that each employer structures its training and hiring processes a bit differently, so we've tried to lay out 2 models for you to consider. Remember that our goal is to make this program work for you, however you structure your program. So if these 2 example models don't fit well with your process, I encourage you to contact me so that we might brainstorm another path forward for your facility. To use wages paid to trainees as your form of matching funds, the hiring occurs first, followed by the training. And the trainees are paid a trainee wage while in training. This $390 figure that you see on the screen here equates to 50% of a full WisCaregiver careers reimbursement amount of $780, which is composed of our $655 training reimbursement plus our $125 testing reimbursement. If your WisCaregivers earn more than $390 during training, that's great. But the minimum amount of matching funds that we need in order to reimburse is this $390. An important nuance here is that with the wage model, is that trainees must receive a wage increase upon certification to be considered as an employment placement under Fast Forward. It can be modest in size, and even 25 cents is acceptable. And under this model, you'd invoice your trainees after certification. Under the bonus model, it's flexible in terms of when the trainee is hired, either after certification or before training, but you would invoice us after the bonus is paid. The main drawback to using a retention bonus in this model is that your reimbursement would be delayed 6 months, though this is still an option. So here's a visual overview of how the WisCaregiver careers wage model would work. So you can see here that the process starts as individuals coming into the system either through an FSET referral, an outside applicant, or your incumbent workers. That means that people that are already working for you, whether it be food service, hospitality, front desk, anybody who's currently working for you who might be interested in upskilling to be a CNA can participate in the program. So the individual is hired on at a WisCaregiver careers employer. They're trained in-house or by a participating training program and are paid wages during training. You use your trainee wages as your source of matching funds, and then the individual proceeds on to certification testing. Upon certification, they receive a wage increase, and at that point, you can submit your invoice and you can receive your reimbursement. And then it's up to you on when you want to pay that $500 bonus, either upon certification, upon hire, at 6 months. It's really, it's more employer driven and more employer focused. And designed to help give flexibility to what works best for your process. Now, moving on to the bonus model. Again, applicants can start from any source. They're hired on. I would suggest hiring on either as a CNA trainee or hired on as any uncertified role within your nursing home. So again, you can hire them on as a dietary aide, housekeeping, laundry, any role within your organization, you're free to hire on as. Then the employer either trains in-house or partners with one of our training programs. They move on to testing, they receive their wage increase, you pay your bonus and use that as your matching funds, and then you submit your reimbursement request after that point. Now, I would like to point out that these two models and how I've laid out this process for you are by no means the only configurations of training to employment pipeline that could work with WisCaregiver Careers. And if you feel like these examples won't work for your hiring process, I can encourage you to contact me so that we can find a process that will work for you. So a little bit about our $500 bonus. The $500 bonus is one of our key program features and employer responsibilities. And here are some important details. So WisCaregiver employers agree to pay WisCaregivers a $500 bonus, regardless of whether they work part-time or full-time. For the purposes of this program, full-time is defined as 32 or more hours per week, and part-time is defined as fewer than 32 hours per week. It's important to note that the program does not pay for the bonuses. By participating in the program, the nursing home agrees to pay the bonus. Finally, in the interest of fairness, we ask that you provide the same amount of bonus to WisCaregivers as you would to any other CNA hired at the same time, with a minimum of $500. So for instance, if you're offering a $750 bonus at the time a WisCaregiver is hired, you should also provide the WisCaregiver a $750 bonus. We wouldn't want the WisCaregivers losing out on $250 just by virtue of participating in this program. Now, since the $500 minimum is still in effect, if you're offering, say, a $250 bonus at the time a WisCaregiver is hired, you would still need to provide a $500 bonus to the WisCaregiver. And then finally, you have the option of paying the bonus at sign-on or at the 6-month mark. We just ask that the bonus be paid in full to the WisCaregiver by the 6-month mark. And this would apply if your sign-on bonuses are paid out in installments over a series of months. So moving right along to our FSET partnership, I'd like to just give a little bit of background and then I'll hand it over to Jennifer and Nate. And then after that, Jessica and Megan will finish up. So, and you'll know which training or which FSET provider applies to your particular facility, because each FSET provider has a list of counties that they cover. So in a nutshell, what is FSET? It stands for Food Share Employment and Training. It's a free program that focuses on the strengths, needs, and preference of job seekers. And they help job seekers find jobs and support them while doing so. You might be wondering, why are we partnering with FSET? Why is this part of WisCaregiver's caregiver careers? And again, the overarching goal of WisCaregiver Careers is to help nursing homes cope with the staffing shortage. And by establishing lasting and supportive relationships between your facility and your local FSET agencies, they can support your hiring needs by giving you a source of staffing leads, and then also providing supportive services to new hires that are part of their programs. Our partners will get into more details about all the wonderful things that they do to support people and make them successful in jobs by removing barriers to employment. But yeah, we just want all of our nursing homes across the state to know about these resources and have a contact person, a friendly face on the other end to help you with your hiring needs. So FSET will refer candidates to you, and then we'll also talk about what's known as a reverse referral. While FSET itself is very difficult for someone to enroll in after gaining employment, there are many other programs that our partners support in addition to FSET. And by referring new hires, like new CNA hires or other kind of entry-level roles in your facility to our partners, they can help direct people, help direct your new hires to the resources that are available in the community to help them be successful on the job. So without further ado, I will hand it over to the experts to give you all the details on their wonderful services. So Jennifer and Nate, take it away.
Hey guys, like Kate said, my name's Nate. I am the job development team lead for Forward Service Corporation in what is effectively Region 10 for FSET. So that is Dane County and the surrounding areas. And I'll pass it off to Jen here quick to introduce herself as well.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Marks, Director of Operations with the Forward Service Corporation, and I cover Northeast Wisconsin as well as the Fox Valley.
Great.
Thanks, Nate.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm going to go over just briefly here some of our programs. Like Kate mentioned, we do at Forward Service Corporation, obviously partnering here with the FSET program, but we do have other resources and other programs that we can co-enroll people in, can give them resources for other things. It's I think great because it's another way that we can provide, wraparound services for participants. If FSET can't fund something, some of our other programs might. So our main two programs that we oversee are the Food Share Employment and Training Program, which Kate just covered, as well as the Wisconsin Works Program. And we do run these in both of the regions that we're covering here today. W2 is a job-based program, provides cash assistance to eligible parents with minor children in the home. And then two other programs that we administer is WIOA, which can help train for a career, local in-demand industries. That's a little bit more broad. Out of high school, I've been working for a while, laid off, to help people map a new career. And then we also have a couple of transportation programs, which is WeTap and the Job Access Loan Program, to help people get reliable transportation, whether that's purchasing a new vehicle or repairing a vehicle that they already have if they're eligible. Again, the program requirements are a little bit different from program to program, but generally there are a lot of great programs that we use to try and support participants in our programs and, get them to self-sufficiency as best as we can. I do want to highlight just quickly specifically in the FSET and Wisconsin Work programs, we do have job retention, which Kate mentioned briefly, which embedded in our program, we can stay with participants for up to 90 days and provide them some of those supportive services that they might need. I'm sure, as all of you guys are aware, generally speaking, most places aren't paying people right away. You have to wait for a couple of weeks to get the check-in. So we can provide some services to participants as they're getting trained in, as they're getting hired on, with whatever that might be. We have resources internally, whether it's helping continue and establish communication if something needs to be done, whether some conflict resolution. And then on top of that, we can provide supportive services if somebody needs something while they're hired on. That can include providing some transportation funds to get people to and from work for those first 90 days. If it's in an area where people can get public transportation, we can help provide bus passes. If it's a requirement for people to have certain kinds of shoes or pants or shirt or anything else that might be required physically for a job, we can help pay for some of those things as well. So those are just a quick example of some of the supportive services that we can provide across all of our programs for participants that are coming through our programs and then would be hired on through one of the participating employers here. And then this is just a quick map. You guys can all see the FSET counties that we are in across the state. This is, I think, a little bit more than the regions that we have here, but we are statewide. We're in 46 counties for all of our programs, I believe, but here is just a quick list. You can see the programs that we administer FSET in, which would be relevant for all of you guys here today. And then here's kind of a quick list of the program services and support that we have. So, individualized program services. I'll highlight quickly. We run a framework that we use for case management. It's great because we run multiple different programs, all have different requirements, but we use a case management system called Transition to Success, where basically we focus on working with the client's dreams effectively and getting them down the road to their dream. Unfortunately, our programs are pretty short-lived, so we're not always with them when they get to, achieve those goals. Obviously, FSET is employment related, but we kind of keep the scope of that to whatever a participant might be, whether their dream is to, eventually travel the world someday, if it's owning their own home, anything. We're there to help people map that out and get to hopefully eventually realizing that dream, even if it's past the time that they're with us in our programs. But this is some other support, like I said, warm referrals to partners across all of our counties and cities and states that we work in. We have a lot of local agency partners that we work with, other nonprofits, employers, other agencies that we're able to refer people to if there are services that we are unable to cover. Hopefully we can pass people off with a warm handoff to get them the support that they may need, whether that's before or after starting employment somewhere. As well as we work at vocational assessments. Volunteer opportunities are another great thing that we can set people up with, between educational and training services, whether that's in-house with us. We have an awesome training team that run a handful of workshops from 1 week to 6 to 8 week certification, where people can get partial credit for local community colleges. And anything else from, local skill workshop, financial literacy, employment referrals, job retention services I touched on, and then some of those other supportive services, including transportation, dependent care, and job retention.
Thanks, Nate. And as Nate mentioned, Forward Service Corporation does have a training team. So we have a group of skills instructors who write curriculum and facilitate trainings across our company, their virtual trainings via Zoom. About 2 years ago, we adapted a healthcare professionals course. We found that, through mapping dreams and doing vocational assessments, we were able to really kind of find the career path for our participants. But sometimes we had participants that thought healthcare was the path they wanted to go because the training is a lot shorter than some of the other trainings that we offer or our external partners offer. So the healthcare professionals course provides them with the information that they need before they make the decision of going into healthcare. So introduction into healthcare, they go over the variety of opportunities that are available in the healthcare industry, tools for learning, healthcare terminology, code of ethics for CNAs, observation, reporting, and documentation, confidentiality, HIPAA, math, and reading comprehension. So these were just a couple of the key things that we cover. Healthcare terminology is actually spread throughout the 8 days. So it is a 2-week, 8-day training. And we have guest speakers coming in, whether it be employers or a training center like the technical college, talking to participants about kind of where they can take their career in healthcare. So we're really excited about that. Offering that to our participants, and we find that the referrals that we send after they've gone through the healthcare professionals course are a lot stronger because the participants already have the awareness. They've already gone through some of the things like background checks and things like that. So we're able to send those referrals over with that background and knowledge. So it's not necessarily training from the ground up. So that was just kind of one thing that we wanted to make sure to highlight with all of you. And if you have any questions about that, you'll have Nate and my contact information to reach out for any additional information. Thank you. So that's our contact information.
That was great, you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, I know that that pre-vocational training is a proven way of helping people move into long-term career relationships. So they know what they're in for before they get to the job. And so, yeah, I think that really is something that makes FSC special. So, and while we're on the topic of this, this region of the state, I also wanted to provide you our list of participating training providers in each of these areas. So up in Jennifer's area, we've got a whole slew of them, as you can see here. And then in Nate's area, we've got 2 additional ones. Again, I'm always happy to work with you if you have a training provider that you've worked with for years or that you've got a good relationship with. I'm always happy to conduct outreach to get more people on, more training providers on board. So again, I'm only ever a phone call or an email away. So moving on, we've got our folks from the North Central FSET, Jessica and Megan. Thank you again for being here. You can take it away.
Thank you, Kate. So I'll introduce myself. I am Jessica Lacken, and I am an FSET case manager. So we are North Central FSET Region 6. So our map shown here all the way south to Adams and all the way up to Forest and Vilas counties is the area that we serve. So both Megan and I are CW Solutions employees, and we partner with Wood County to administer FSET in this region. I did put our website on here because it is a great way to find out more information. We have it for our participants to go on, find job leads, find information about education opportunities and all of that on there. And there's also a join us link. So if someone wants to enroll in FSET, that's right there so that they can put that inquiry in and then we'll reach out to them. My contact information's on here, and I'm going to let Megan introduce herself too before I get started.
Hi, I'm Megan Stanchik. So I'm what we call a career services specialist in our region, which is similar to the job developer, I believe, with Forward Services as with Nate and Jennifer. So what I'm doing is primarily doing employer outreach. So we're trying to find as many opportunities for our participants, as well as trying to understand the labor market, what our employers are looking for. And that includes obviously in the healthcare world. So basically bringing that information back to the table for our team to use, including on our myfset.net website. We do a lot of labor market, hot jobs, fastest growing job type, put that kind of information out there for our customers and just anyone to see, just to try to, especially in our area, we are much more rural, so it's a little bit difficult to do a lot of very, very specialized trainings, but in Wausau or Marathon County in particular, we do have quite a few hospitals and medical facilities, nursing homes. So we're always trying to encourage people to explore that healthcare world when we can, because jobs are endless.
Yeah, so as Megan mentioned, that kind of brings me into a few things that we as case managers then will work on with our customers, especially if they're like, hey, I'm interested in education, and that CNA comes up a whole lot. So one thing we do is kind of pre-screen people to say, okay, this is what you'd be doing as a CNA, kind of going through assessments and making sure it's kind of a good career fit for them. And then also doing that labor market research. Like Megan said, we have a lot of that information on our website for people to explore, kind of reviewing, what the expectations are from those employers. She also touched on the referrals through career services then, so those go through her with the employers. For the case managers then working with our participants for employment or training, we have the funding available to pay for clothing for interviews. So while they're job searching, the first thing that we do is say, do you have interview clothing? If you get called for an interview tomorrow, you can be prepared for that. We can help with gas cards or bus passes or taxi vouchers during their job search, and then also for education and training, and then for those 90 days, as Nate mentioned, that job retention period, once they're hired, continuing those supports for them. As Megan said too, a lot of our places are rural, so can be difficult to get places, and you might have to travel a little bit further to get to an employer as well. Really help people. Scrubs and work clothing and shoes. So if they're going to be starting a training program or starting work at a nursing facility, we're going to be able to get those items for them. Other supports, so just kind of that full case management services, making sure that they have everything that they need, and that's usually kind of our some of our screening process too. Is okay, do you have transportation to get there? Do you have the supports needed to be able to complete that training and make it to work every day? So we do have those additional supports with housing assistance, vehicle repair, childcare assistance, and actually a lot more too. I just kind of put on those ones that are usually the most important. We also collaborate with a lot of community resources to fill those service gaps. So as Nate said, with Forward Service, they operate a lot of those other programming, but CW Solutions, we don't operate those programs here. So like some of those are ones we have good relationships with in our region. If somebody's not eligible for FSET, or maybe collaborating and working with multiple programs to get those additional supports, we have the connections with those other resources in our area then to make sure that that person is fully supported. And then lastly, just to mention a few of our other programs that we do have. So I just put on here a couple of ones that CW Solutions specifically operates, and some are not in, so we're up in Marathon County. We operate the all 9 county region. So some are throughout all 9 counties, some are only in a few select counties. So Future Employment and Training Program. And then 2 that are related to child support. We have Elevate in Wood County, which is a CW Solutions Wood County partnership. And then Children First, which is a Wood, Portage, and Oneida counties. And we also have a couple of youth-based programs, but they do have those employment and training components as well. And a lot of those people also looking for CNA training. So we have our TRAIL, Transitional Resource Agency, also known as Independent Living. And that is through our whole 9 county region, as well as our new PATHS program, which is housing focused to make sure youth have housing, but also focuses again on kind of full spectrum of employment and training as well. So Megan, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in. Otherwise.
Thank you guys so much. I think what set off in my mind, what sets you guys apart is your website is so well designed, and the labor market information that you guys have, and the resources that are there for your participants to explore. I just am envisioning our employers getting plugged into that website and having their hot jobs listed and things like that. So very excited for the relationships that will start to unfold after today's webinar. So moving right along, let's talk about invoicing. So for our training, our in-house training providers, today with us, we have a mix of employers who have in-house training programs where they provide the training themselves, and then employers that would need to partner with one of our participating training providers. So the way that if you're an in-house training provider, you would be invoicing us directly for the services that you're providing. For somebody that's partnering with an outside training provider, we would be reimbursing your training costs. And by working with one of our participating training providers, all of those training providers have agreed to our reimbursement rate of $655. So that should mean that you do not have out-of-pocket costs for your training when you are referring your incumbent employees or new hires to our training providers. So the way that our training reimbursement works is it's a flat rate of $655. In order to be reimbursed, a student must complete at least 24 hours of training. Like I mentioned, we can still reimburse for students that either withdraw or fail from the training, but we do have limitations in terms of how many we can reimburse. It's a maximum of 15% of the entire 500 trainees that start training. Like I mentioned, it's a flat fee. So it includes the cost of a criminal background check as part of the training process. We don't reimburse separately for that. It's included in the $655. And it's the same amount regardless if you're a 75-hour or 120-hour, anywhere in between or above 120, it's always the same, that $655. We also reimburse for your costs for the CNA certification exam. I know different employers do it differently. Some will just pay for the exam out of pocket, or others will have the trainee pay for it up front and then reimburse them. Either way is fine with us. We just would need to see proof of purchase, either through a receipt that your facility paid, or as a reimbursement form from the trainee to your company. We do have a limited budget for retests. So if somebody doesn't make it on their first shot, they can try again and we will reimburse you for that. However, we cannot, due to the limited nature of the budget, we cannot reimburse for no-shows. So that means that if somebody is signed up to take the test and they don't show up that day, we can't reimburse that, unfortunately. We will supply the invoice template and as well as a detailed document on how to invoice. I will be sending that to you today as a follow-up from today's webinar. And I'll also walk you through the documentation. So you submit the invoice form that we provide along with our forms of documentation that we need. And in terms of when you would invoice us, you would invoice us after the training and the testing is complete. So after someone's made it all the way through, not like first the training and then go back and request the reimbursement for the testing. We'd like you to do it all in one shot for that individual, or at the point that the individual leaves the training process. So either they fail or withdraw from the training, or they finish the training, but they're not gonna do the certification exam. Like, so once that person is all said and done with, that is the point at which you would invoice us. So a little bit about our documentation. I'd say in all of WisCaregiver careers, understanding the documentation and getting the hang of it is probably the hardest part. But once you get the hang of it, I think you'll be able to kind of know what to do here. So for each person, we have 5 things. They need to show up on your invoice form. Okay. On the invoice form itself, it's an Excel workbook. And there's a tab for the CNA training and a tab for the CNA testing. So again, that's all laid out in the instructions that I'm going to send, but I just wanted to highlight that for you. We will need, in addition, so the person's name needs to show up on that invoice form. Then you'll need to provide for each individual their payroll data, which demonstrates that yes, this person either was paid during training or received their $500 bonus. And that is how we substantiate to the state that we are collecting matching funds. So there isn't a specific piece of documentation required by the Department of Workforce Development. They just say payroll data. A pay stub works well. Make sure the stub includes the trainee's name, their wage that they were paid, the hours worked, and the pay period dates. I just ask that you please redact any personally identifiable information such as their social security number and their address, just for cybersecurity reasons. You can also, if you have a HR system, like a payroll system, you're free to create a payroll report, which includes all of these data, which is also acceptable to DWD. And if you have any questions on how to do the payroll data, of course, feel free to call me or email me. So payroll data for the matching fund purposes. Second thing that they need to have is their proof of purchase for their certification exam. So either the receipt, if your facility paid for the exam, your receipt is your proof of purchase. And if you're reimbursing your employee, you just provide whatever documentation that you require for the reimbursement process. Then we want to see the proof of the certification outcome. So with that, you just hop onto TMU, you type in the person's information, and you just print out the screen that shows their name and their certification dates. And then finally, last but not least, the Wisconsin Fast Forward data form. I will get into some more detail about that data that's required by our funding source in a second, but we'll just keep moving on for now. So a word about the failed or withdrawal from training. I don't mean to belabor this point, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands, because in everybody's experience that I've spoken to when it comes to the world of CNA training, you have a fair number of people who start kind of get into it and then realize this isn't for me and fail or withdraw from training. And so we just want to make sure everybody understands that we have this maximum of 75 failed or withdrawn trainees. And we can still reimburse you though for this. We just want to make sure that you understand that they need to have completed at least 24 hours of training. If they leave the program prior to that 24 hours of training, we are not able to reimburse. And that's a maximum of this 15%. So that means for every 6 who complete the training, we can reimburse you for 1 of the folks who fail or withdraw from the program. Okay, so let's talk about PII, which is personally identifiable information. PII, or personally identifiable information, is information which can be used to distinguish or trace an individual's identity, and if fallen into the wrong hands, could be used for nefarious purposes such as opening fake bank or credit accounts. I'm sure working in the healthcare industry, as you all do, that you're probably familiar with the high level of care that is needed when working with this personally identifiable information in order to ensure that the data remains secure. I mention it here because our Fast Forward grant requires us to provide PII of our trainees as part of their invoice process, which then means that we will need to collect this data from you as part of your invoice process with WisCaregiver Careers. So DWD requires that this information is provided so that they can track employment outcomes associated with the grant program, as well as for program evaluation purposes. And this is, in talking about this with DWD, the final answer was, well, the way that we do business is by social security number and date of birth. And so that's how we do all our tracking with everything in this department. And so as a result, they require us to collect it. So let's take a look at the kind of data that DWD requires. As you can see, we have a lot of demographic information as well as wages before and after training. This is so that DWD can assess what sorts of employment outcomes, including wage gains, that are associated with the training dollars that they've granted to us. DWD provides these lovely forms for its grantees to use, but as I mentioned, since it does contain PII, including social security number and date of birth, we want to avoid transmitting these forms over an unsecured platform, such as email. As a result, we've moved this data collection to the cloud through a secured form service, which is this Microsoft Forms app. That's how we will be collecting our trainee data that's required by DWD. I've just simply added all of the items from DWD's form into this online form, which is hosted by Microsoft and is secured according to its stringent data security policies. The form takes about 5 minutes or less to complete per trainee, and I will provide the link for you to access it in the invoice instructions that I will be sending to you as a follow-up from this webinar. So let's talk about next steps, and then we can cover any questions that you might have. So the first thing you should kind of get the ball rolling with is talk to your internal team and identify in each of your buildings who's going to be the contact person, the point of contact for your CNA employment referrals from FSET. So like I mentioned, one of the great benefits to partnering with FSET is that they're going to be working hard, beating the bushes for people who are interested in entering a career as a CNA, and they need to know who they're going to send them to. So make sure that you have the discussion internally and who's going to be that point of contact. Second is to have that internal discussion about who's going to be your point of contact for your invoicing process. When creating these, compiling all of the documentation that's required, it's nice to have a central person to go to, especially if I have an issue. Like once it's submitted, I can go back to the person and say, oh, I need this or that. So having that contact person is going to be really important. So after you've done that, you would then be ready to have the discussion with your representative from your local FSET agency. So someone from Nate's team or someone from Megan's team will be reaching out to everybody who's attending this webinar to get the details about, okay, so when we have an interested applicant, what do you need us to have them do? Do you have an online form? Do you have a paper form? What sorts of documentation do you want them to submit? Do you want them to submit a resume, or do you have a form that you use instead of a resume? Just all of those little details. Also, they'll be asking you about, like, how do you want to go about doing training? Do you provide the training in-house, or do you want to partner with one of the WisCaregiver training providers? Again, and I'm always happy to assist if if you need some support or just have questions about how to get all this stuff organized. I'm here for you. Also take a look at your email box. I will be sending everybody who is invited to this webinar today will receive an email from me with a recording of today's presentation, PowerPoint PDF. So you've got all the slides to refer back to, and my invoicing instructions. The invoicing instructions will have all like examples of all the different forms of documentation that I discussed. It will have a link to the invoice form that I mentioned, and hopefully it'll be everything you need to do your next step, which is to prepare your first invoice. Our grant period dates back to July 2020. So that means that anybody that you've trained between July 2020 and now is eligible for reimbursement. So yeah, just get to work on preparing that invoice, and let me know if you've got any questions or need clarification on any of these documentations or processes. So with that, we will wrap up. And this is all of our contact information, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just go ahead and type it into the Q&A box at the top of your screen, and we'll answer any questions. So anything for myself or any of our project partners that are here today. And again, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to be with us today and for your interest in WisCaregiver Careers. Again, our main goal is to have this program work for you. So if anything that you heard today, you need more information about, or you're not sure how it would work in your building, nothing is out of the realm of possibility in terms of discussing ideas on how it would work for you. You know, my goal is to have it work for you. So anything I can do to help you is my my pleasure. So I'm looking at our Q&A box. I don't see anything popping up immediately. Project partners, did you have anything else that you kind of want to add? Or, I mean, maybe you could, both of you, I think Jessica, you had mentioned that you see a lot of interest in CNA. So just would love to hear some more about that, because, you know, from the perspective at WHCA, we always are trying to find more CNAs, and it would be nice to hear that what your experience is with, you know, folks being interested in it as a career path.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people do come into it. We see a lot of initial interest in it. I think it's just because it's such like it is a quick program, like at our local tech school here. I think it's 6 to 9 weeks or something. I think a lot of people though don't end up going through that, whether it be because of other barriers like background or transportation or family or whatever it is. But I think it's helpful to have multiple options besides just going through like NTC or their local tech school. So having like a tangible direction of here, these are the options for you. There are these employers who are doing the training. You can, especially getting paid while you work or while you get trained, I think is really helpful. So having programs like this that kind of open up those options for people, I think is helpful. Yeah, it's one of our, I think, primary interests as far as education goes, CNA. Sometimes it's just a matter of somebody doesn't know what it's going to entail. So that's kind of how we attempt to you know, go through, hey, this is what the expectations are, and this is what you would actually be doing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
That's really helpful. And I like that you mentioned about the background check, because I think that's another advantage to partnering with FSET, is that the folks that are being referred over to the employers, you've already had that conversation. You know, I know you guys are not performing the formal background check, you know, like that the employer would do upon hire, but just ensuring that the applicant has that baseline understanding that there are some some things in your background that would just rule you out as this is a career option. And so I think that again demonstrates one of the values of the partnership.
Yeah, and we'll actually sometimes we will run the background check through the county. They can run it. And just to give that person an idea, like I had a customer recently who thought working at any kind of care facility was totally out the window because she thought she had something on her record, and looking that up and going through that with her, it's not on there. So she's like, oh, awesome, I could do this job. I've been the past 3 years, I haven't even been thinking it's an option. So sometimes we do that initial like, hey, let's go through and see kind of what shows up so that you're aware of what that would look like to an employer.
Great. It's just so interesting to hear it from the supply side versus the demand side. You know, the employers are definitely the demand, and you guys are working with, you know, the labor market, you know, the actual market of job seekers. So it's really interesting to hear your guys' perspective. Now, I did get one question come through on the question box. She says, I would like clarification on the 500 trainees. Is that facility specific or a program specific number of persons in the Wisconsin Caregivers Program? So the answer to that is we have training for 500 people across the whole state. So there is no limit per employer. We are doing our invoicing first come, first serve. So that definitely behooves you to get that first invoice ready and submit it as soon as possible. I will be communicating with our employer partners on a periodic basis to update you about how many training slots are left. There's no, like, I know in the first iteration of WisCaregivers, there was like tracking numbers and things like that, but we've kind of simplified the program. And again, it's more employer focused. And so, so yes, it's first come, first serve, maximum of 500 that will be going through the program. So yes, you're welcome. She's saying, thank you. You're welcome. Now, if anybody else has any questions, just go ahead and type them on into the Q&A box that should appear if you kind of hover at the top of your screen. It'll pop up and you can type your questions in there.
Kate, I would just like to mention the importance of communication. We've found that communicating with, you know, our direct kind of contact person within HR has been key in really strengthening our referrals, because then if we, you know, refer somebody and then you're finding that, you know, throughout the discussion, they might not be the best fit for you. We want to hear that so that we can, again, strengthen those referrals coming to you. So having that frequent and ongoing, you know, communication regarding our referrals, how they're working out while they are in training, and then even after they've been hired on, is, I think, going to be the best way to, you know, start out our relationship with the referrals coming to you and training opportunities that you're providing. So
that's great. Yeah, it's like that feedback loop of, okay, what's working, what's not working, you know, what ended up happening with this referral. Did she get hired? Did she not? You know, is she, you know, how's she doing on the job? So yeah, that is super. I'm super glad you mentioned that. Super glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and in O'Connell, we did have a referral from the employer. It was an incumbent worker. We found that to be really helpful, because then we could provide those wraparound services to support her while she was advancing with the employer. So, you know, the employer was then providing the training, but we were providing, you know, case management, financial literacy, all these other kind of pieces of you know, the services that we provide through our FSEP program. And then we had mentioned earlier our WeTap and job access loan programs. So if you have an employee that maybe is not able to show up to work because of, you know, reliable transportation, we do have those programs which allow for no interest vehicle repair and vehicle purchase loans. So sending people to us, whether it's, you know, for FSET or a different program that we operate, we'll get them where they need to go.
Great. And that'll be something you discuss in those follow-up calls of like, okay, if you've got an incumbent worker or a new hire, you'll explain to our employers, okay, this is the process. You send them to this person. And one thing you know, I would like all the employers to kind of understand is it might not be FSET that incumbent employee or new hire fits into, but because our partners have such great connections in the community, they can still assess what that particular individual's needs are. And if there are resources available, they can point them in the right direction. So when you talk to your incumbent employees and your new hires about, talking to somebody from Jennifer's team or Nate's team or Megan's team or Jessica's team, you can let them know, you're going to talk to this person. They're going to listen to what your needs are, and then they're going to point you in the right direction, just so that they know that it might not be the final stop on the journey towards getting them the support they need, but they're going to be in good hands and they're going to be pointed in the right direction from there. Again, and it's the whole idea is to try to build these collaborative relationships between the employers and our community service providers to result in better employment outcomes, both as you as employers, as well as from the workers standpoint as well. So, seeing that I don't see any more questions coming through, I think we'll wrap it up. Again, thank you all so much for your attendance. Thank you to our program partners. You all did a wonderful job. I really appreciate your partnership, and I just hope that moving forward, there really can be a relationship that takes off between you and all of our WisCaregiver employers. So thank you all for being here. And again, keep an eye out for that email from me, and feel free to call or email me with any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kate.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone. Bye.